Three, two, one. Gotcha. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I'm running a little bit late. Reason why is because ended up with an event going on tonight in Emmett. Yes, that is the People's Rights meeting. Happens to be an Ammon Bundy favorite, particularly here in Emmett, usually in attendance. They called a special session this evening. Rather than starting at the usual 8 tonight, they went with a 7 o'clock. So I had to boogie on up here to get up here a little early so I could do the broadcast before I went to that, because I can't do the broadcast then drive up here and still make the time. God, gotta love Idaho, man. 8 hours from one end of my district to the other, Congressional District 1. Just one of those things you gotta deal with. So, for those of you who are joining me now, I am Joe Evans. I am the first congressional candidate for, I am the Libertarian candidate for 1st Congressional District to the state of Idaho. Yes. Please contribute to my campaign. Work on getting the click-through on that at some point, figure out how to make that happen so you can just click through and donate. But those donations help me run my campaign. They help me keep this broadcast up live and running. And it helps me get to Washington, D.C. so I can represent you. Yes, you. Because that's what I want to do. I want to get to Washington, D.C. and work on those issues of active ungovernance. Yes. Yes, I made that word up. Ungovernance. That's what we're going to do once we get to Washington. We are going to ungovern D.C. We're going to give life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and the choice of how to pursue all those things right back to you. People of Idaho, well, it's Congress, so it's federal. Send me to Washington, I'm able to make that happen for everybody in the nation. Yeah, you don't like that much freedom? I'm pretty sure there's a mayor somewhere in America that's willing to take that away from you. But in the meantime, we're going to make sure the federal government isn't the one taking it away from you. So, what do you guys want to talk about tonight? What have we got going on? Aside from the people's rights issues, let's go ahead and talk about war mentality. Right? The war on everything. So what sort of things are important to you on those? You know what? Let's go ahead. Let's do that a little bit different here. I want this to look like this. Yes. And we're going to keep the ticker running along the bottom. Yes, Funly, Joe Evans for Congress. Ooh, I got to make an adjustment here. There we go. Yes. The war on everything. So right now, we've been having a war on everything, seems like, well, forever. 1950s, it was the war on communism, McCarthyism, this, that, and the other. God, everybody's calling everybody a Marxist these days. Do we even know what a Marxist is? Well, the Marxists know what Marxism is. At least they think they do. That is, most Marxists today are not fundamentalist Marxists. They're neo-Marxist, revisionist Marxists. Some people even look at some of my philosophies and say, hey, that's, yeah, well, no. I got a meme that I really like. It's, 3 beers in a libertarian convention. Helicopter rides for all y'all. I might even dig it up later sometime and show it to you guys. But, but that just happens to be one. That's a 50-year-old one. And what's happened in the last 50 years? Well, it's 70 years. It's a 70-year-old war on Marxism, war on communism. What's happened in the last 70 years? The United States has become a communist nation. It has. I don't care what you think about Obama, what you think about Trump. The United States is a communist nation. We have one commissary, one place we buy everything from, Amazon. Yes, we have an oligopoly. We have 3 companies that run our entire food chain. You know, the only thing that's stopping it from being one is it's too big. I mean, trying to feed the entire nation through one food supply chain. So these 3 companies have divvied up the nation, and you know, they control all the food. You know, we are living in communist America. We spend more of our paycheck on taxes than we actually take home by the end of the day. After you add in sales tax and fees, your licensing to go to the fish store, you know, to go fishing, you know, your licenses to go hunting, your license for your car, your income tax, your Social Security insurance, your unemployment insurance that your employer has to pay so that you can continue to collect this $600 thing that, you know, the federal government authorized. Yeah. We continue to have those problems. And the reason why is because the United States is a communist country. Or the new word for communism in the United States, it's national capitalism. Now, state capitalism. We call it state capitalism these days. That's what China is. It's a state capitalist nation. The United States, it's a state capitalist nation. The reason why is because the government controls our capital. Yes, it may be privately owned, but the government controls it. But since that war started 70 years ago, what other wars have we had since then? The war on drugs. Yes, the war on drugs started by Nixon. The war on poverty started by FDR. The war on education. Well, technically, we don't have a war on education, although it feels like it considering how fast our education is going downhill. And that was started by Jimmy Carter. You know, made possible by the United States Department of Education. Yes. The war on terror. The war on terror. It's a 20-year-old war now. The war on COVID. With each and every one of those wars on something, we've sacrificed our rights as Americans. We've sacrificed our right to bodily autonomy. If I want to smoke something, I should be able to smoke. See, if you want to smoke something, you should be able to smoke it because it's your body. You do with it what you want. But no, we've created a situation where we've made it illegal for you to do with your body what it is you want to do with it. Government interference, the war on drugs. The war on drugs. It's also been one of the most racist wars. And all of our wars have been racist to some degree or another. You know, Vietnam, there's a war on Asians. Korea, there's a war on Asians. Middle East, there's a war on Semites, actually. Afghanistan, Iraq, the war on the Persians. A war on drugs. Just happened to be a war on our fellow citizens who were of a different color. It was used to break up, of all things, the Black Panther Party. Yes, the Black Panthers of the 1970s were socialists. God, the communism coming back. You know what happened? We went and made it anarcho-socialism. It was about community leadership. It was about community building. You know, that was one of those things we had back then. We actually built communities. You know, the Black Panthers were building communities. They were building inner city communities. Their victory gardens, their urban garden projects. They were teaching people to be self-sustaining with regards to their food. You know, this was community building. These were communities supporting communities, neighbors supporting neighbors. These were people stepping up and trying to do their best to take control of their lives back. Nixon jacked that up. He jacked it up hardcore. Reason why is because these communities that were supporting each other, they didn't believe in the war. It was making the military-industrial complex rich. What are we having problems with right now? People who don't believe in the wars anymore. We don't believe in the war in Afghanistan. We do not believe in the war in Iraq. We do not believe in the war in Yemen. We do not believe in having troops in 150 nations around the world. We don't. And we continue to use what means we can to protest this. And we have had organizations that protest the war. Okay? They don't know they're protesting the war. Reason why is because the empire came home. So many of our law enforcement officers right now are former soldiers with PTSD, PTSI. You know, they come back. They see threats differently because of what we did over there. They respond differently because of what we did over there. Not that I'm saying our veterans, all of our veterans have this problem. No, not particular response to our problem. You know, most of us have some form of PTSI one way or another that have affected our behavior since getting out. But we continue to fight a different war. And that war is about ending the war on war. Actually, that's a very bad idea. Reason why is because every war on some ideology has usually brought more of the ideology back. What we're fighting for is peace. No, we don't. That's true. We don't believe in the war on drugs. Absolutely, Jackson. We don't believe in the war on drugs. Damn good reason we don't believe in the war on drugs. Reason why is because 40% of our prison population across the United States these days is in for violations of personal bodily autonomy, the things the state told us we can't do with our own bodies. 40%. We do not believe in the war on drugs. It's just a small extension. War on drugs, the way we fight it, who we send to prison because of it, the number of cops we have on the street because of the war on drugs. Defund the police. It's a big issue right now. Go ahead and look at defund the police. Talked about this before. Reason why is because if we defund the police, people are wondering, who's going to stop, you know, the rapists and the murderers and the killers and all of those other antisocial personalities, the burglars? Well, the police don't actually stop burglars. They come after the burglars have left to do the investigation and the damage assessment and file the report so you can collect the insurance on everything the burglar stole from you. But, yep, absolutely. War begets war. Every time. More war, more war, more war. The war on the war would bring more wars. But yeah. So, we were to end the war on drugs, which right now leads to the bulk of those incidences that we have with police, those interactions with police that go south the no-knock raids in order to preserve evidence to prosecute the war on drugs would stop. Breonna Taylor would still be alive because the police wouldn't have conducted a no-knock raid in order to preserve evidence of potential drug offenses. They grabbed the wrong building, grabbed the wrong house. We would have young children that would be without burns because of flashbang grenades that landed in their cribs because of no-knock raids. People would be alive today. Children would not have to live with the trauma of a no-knock raid breaking down the doors of their house in the middle of the night. Yes, we do that. That is Empire Come Home. That is the war on drugs. That is what we did in Afghanistan. That is what we did in Iraq. That is what the Saudis are doing in Yemen. We are kicking in doors in the middle of the night, and we are destroying private property. It's what we do with no-knock raids. We break doors. Qualified immunity means that when the police break down those doors, they don't have to pay for damages to the house. That is what it is. That is Empire Come Home. We go to war with our own citizens, with our own residents of our nation. Okay, so that's 15 minutes of doom and gloom. How do you guys feel about getting your rights back? All of those rights that we've surrendered because of these wars that our politicians keep telling us we have to fight. The wars on ideologies to keep us safe. Save me, take my rights to protect me. Yep, absolutely. You're right on that, Cliff. The R's and D's don't have the balls to end qualified immunity. Not in any way, shape, or form. The police unions own them. Cock and ball torture. Yes, that is how much the police unions own the R's and D's all across the nation. Can't go anywhere without the police unions wanting to say, hey, no, we don't want you to legalize the drugs. Hey, no, we need more police in the streets. Let's keep everything illegal so there's more police in the streets. Give us more policing to do. No, you're right, Cliff. Absolutely. Jackson, right? End of prohibition. They fired 60% of law enforcement. That is why they do not want to end prohibition on marijuana. That is why they do not want to end the war on drugs. End the war on drugs, 60% of law enforcement loses their jobs. Who else loses revenue? Police unions. When all of a sudden, participation rate in the police unions are cut by 60%. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Cliff. Police unions, teachers unions, the pensions, 100%. Public unions. Okay, let's talk about that. Public unions, police union, teachers union, firemen's union. Now, all of these are public unions. Reason why is because you, as a taxpayer, are paying the wages for the police, paying the wages for the teachers, paying the wages for the clerks, in the state house. These are public unions. The amazing thing is when Idaho did the whole right to work thing back, 40 years ago? I guess it was about 30 years ago because I was about 20 at the time. Yes, I dated myself with that. 30 years ago when Idaho became a right to work state, somehow the public unions like the police union and the teachers union survived our right to work. You still pretty much have to be a member of the teachers union in order to teach in a public school in the state of Idaho. You have to be part of a police union. Uh, yeah, good experience at the DMV. It depends. Some of the counties are better than others, but yeah, exactly. Um, so here we are in a state. It's a right to work state. You cannot work. The strength of the unions that work on the economy, the private unions, the ones who work with construction companies, the ones, the plumbers union, the electricians union, the carpenters union, all of those that work with private contract organizations, their ability to affect the wages for that particular career field went away. You lost the collective bargaining. Yes, the war on labor. Yes, that's what right to work was. It was a war on labor. When we legalized that in the state of Idaho, the ability for the unions to affect safety on job sites went out the window. Just as right to work was passing in the state of Idaho, we had an awful lot of dam works. They were out doing repair work on the Lucky Peak Dam. Who remembers that? Less than 2 weeks after right to work went into effect, they started hiring scabs to go in and do the job. Somebody drove off a pier because they weren't a union certified driver. Died. Lucky Peak Dam, the repairs on that were going good right up until the last minute. Speaking of labor, Labor Day, it's coming up. Take time. Go out and remember all of those people who sacrificed for that 5-day work week, the 40-hour work week, which, won't even pay the rent in the state of Idaho these days. Yeah. Go out and celebrate Labor Day. But, and that was legislation. Believe it or not, they had to legislate away your right to collective bargaining in the state of Idaho. How libertarian is that? Tell me. How friggin' libertarian is that to legislate away your freedom of association to conduct collective bargaining? Everybody on the job site knows how much the contractor's making. You know how much more the job site managers getting paid than the electricians are? You know how much profit margin is built into, the construction site. Somebody's pocketing that money. Guess what? They're hiring unskilled workers in order to do it. That was one of the reasons why the labor unions got together. It was their ability to ensure that the skill on the job site kept everybody safe. You didn't have people driving off of piers. You didn't have substandard electrical work. You didn't have substandard plumbing. And your carpenters, your steel workers knew what in hell they were doing. The reason why is because they all worked for the same union. You all knew each other. Somebody just couldn't walk on the job site, undercut the rest of you by $2 and claim they were a steel worker and put everybody's life in danger. You knew each other. You kept each other safe. Idaho stole that from you 30 years ago. Yeah. Labor Day. So, well, yeah, we got about 6 more minutes left, folks. 6 more minutes. You've heard me gripe about the war. You've heard me gripe about the police. You've heard me gripe about, what else you want to listen to me gripe about before I head off and do these awesome things? Yes. I really shouldn't look at my phone at times like these. For those of you curious, here, take a look. And put it up there. Choppy, the revolutionary assistant. Come along. Purge the oligarchs. Purge the oligarchs. Okay. So, here in about another 30 minutes, I'm going to run over, well, 20 minutes now. 20 minutes. We got the people's rights meetings. Yes. Absolutely, Cliff. We used to have a great blue collar workers because they were held accountable for their performance. They were held accountable by each other. That's what the unions did. They knew each other. They held each other accountable. Protection racket now. Absolutely. The amount of nepotism. It's one of the reasons why I, as a libertarian, I don't support the national unions. You know, IWW, Teamsters, they're nationally organized. It's a protection racket. You know, the people who negotiate, the people who organize, they are divorced from the workers. They are divorced from the job site. And they are also easily bought by management. They are managers. They are not laborers. They're not part of the labor market. I do not support the national centralization of those labor unions like the IWW, the Teamsters, even the AFL-CIO. Joe, who's the Idaho chapter, probably doesn't like me that much because of that, because all of those AFL-CIO funds, yes, the AFL-CIO is the strongest union in the state of Idaho, well, centralized union, but still a national organization. It is not a local. You know, when people from the AFL-CIO, the IWW, and those other organizations come in, they do not come in and negotiate with consideration of the local economy. They do not come in and negotiate with considerations for local company policies, local government policies. They don't come in and negotiate with an understanding of local issues. Yeah. You know, they negotiate based on a federal wage rather than what the economy can support. You know, when you come into Idaho and say, well, I want my people to get the same wages that they're getting paid in Southern California. Well, even still, even today, you know, as much as it costs to rent in Boise, you know, I guess median rental is going up to about $1,200, $1,300 right now. Even as much as it costs to rent here in the state of Idaho, in Boise, you know, to keep somebody in a dwelling, to keep somebody in a home in Southern California is still 2 to 3 times that. You know, we don't need Teamsters coming in and negotiating wages in the state of Idaho that are comparable to the wages in Southern California. It doesn't work. You know, our local contractors can't support that. And truth is our local labor doesn't need it. You know, they can continue to, you know, cost of living just isn't comparable yet. You know, so local negotiations, local understanding, local economy, understand what's needed in the local environment. Yeah. So we get back into manufacturing, construction, civil engineering back here in the state of Idaho. And we actually have, God, trains. Out by the airport, we actually had a train manufacturing facility. Train engines. God. What happened, man? We got so much industrial capacity here in Boise that has just been mothballed. You know, we could be building light rail engines. We could be building electric engines, high-speed engines, you know, a little bit of retrofitting. You know, we could actually build our own high-speed rail system. Build the engines for it right here in Boise. Do we? No. And this is one of those things. You actually want to live in a socialist city? We got people complaining about Boise turning socialist. Well, it is socialist. Think about all of the taxes that you pay into Boise in order to get all of those amenities that Boise provides. Transit, our parks, those police. Yeah, who benefits from the red tape, Cliff? Absolutely. Government benefits, cronyism benefits, nepotism benefits. In our case here in the Valley, our developers benefit. They go in and build the exact same mid-grade, upper-grade residential dwelling that runs, $1,800 a month to rent, regardless of whether or not the people who live in the area can actually pay the $1,800 a month. There's no such thing as affordable housing in the city of Boise anymore. That's quickly becoming apparent through the entire state. We just cannot keep up with the housing requirements. It is what it is, folks. It is what it is. So, comes to the war on your rights, the red tape. Idaho actually went through and we did a fairly good job of that. I don't like the way they did it, because essentially the way they did it was extremely irresponsible. This is my kid asking me a tough question. Brian, should transit be a public service or a private service? I think that's a local question, actually. If you were at a city level or a county level, let's go with county. We got a county level arrangement. How much of your taxes would you be willing to give to pool together in order to make transit public? Whether it's high-speed transit, like they have on the rail systems along the I-5 corridor or I-95 corridor. I mean, none of it's real high speed. It's all slow as hell. But things like the BART system in Southern California, Bay Area rapid transit, those. Yeah. That's the question, though, isn't it, Clifford? Is transit funding voluntary? Well, if you go to one of those cities and they want to put out the levy that says, okay, we're going to build the BART, or, in Idaho, what would it be? We'll call it the TVART. The TVART. The Treasure Valley Area Rapid Transit. If we were to build something like that in the Treasure Valley, where we were running a rapid transit from Elmore County out in Mountain Home, clear through Boise into Ontario, we were to build that. And each one of the areas that was contributing, and each of the areas would have to vote on this in order to do it. What percentage would you say should be the winning vote? Would you want 60% of counties to say, hey, let's go ahead and pay for the rapid transit? Maybe you want 70%. 70% of each county has to agree, we're going to contribute to this rapid transit capability so that we have mass transit available to those people who don't want to drive cars, or for those people who do want to drive cars, don't want a lot of it, on their roads that they like to drive on. Would you consider that voluntary as one of those democratic representation capabilities? Hard to say whether private will jack it up. I mean, you can have an investor come in and say, hey, we want to put it in. We'll price it so that we end up footing the entire bill. They know where the crossover point is on profits. Awful lot of math in that. Believe me, there's an awful lot of math in that capacity. How much would a monthly ticket in order to ride the rapid transit that takes you down to the Boise City train depot so that you can get off and ride a bus down to your job in center Boise, or that takes you out to where you're working on, the train station, where you're working on, the train engines that built the train that you just rode into town. Yeah. City density. City density is usually what determines the kind of rapid transit that you deal with. Boise isn't dense enough yet. They're about to change that. They want to rezone the density in the city of Boise. They want to be able to put higher density dwellings in. Personally, I think that's a good idea. We got about 4 or 5 areas in the Treasure Valley right now that could stand some high density dwelling that isn't going to jack with the skyline in the Boise area. Well, you go in, throw in some high density, and some entrepreneur will go, let's go ahead and try the rapid transit. Maybe we can get 70% who will contribute a small amount so that the rapid transit reduces the amount of traffic on the freeways that they like to drive on. When it comes to it, where you consider the voluntary crossover point, Cliff? When a city wants to tax you in order to contribute to the development of this transit capacity. Right? Absolutely, Cliff. If you don't have the right plan for it, if you don't make sure that the entrepreneur who has the plan for it, and that's one of those things, absolutely. As soon as you get government involved in the process, it starts bleeding. It starts bleeding bad. Reason why is because now the government sets the contract. You no longer have an entrepreneur who's trying to find that crossover point where it's affordable, and where we reach the point, it's like now we have a government institution that has decided this is what they're going to do. And they've decided to tax you in order to fund it. And they've convinced 70% of the local area that it needs to happen. And now they got a contract. They got a government contract that was poorly written specifically to make sure that the friend of the government that got the contract continues to get rich off of the process, regardless of how poorly they perform in the construction of the light rail system. Okay, California, classic example. It's a boondoggle they got going down there. Boondoggle. Okay, these were poorly written contracts because the city officials that awarded the contracts weren't held accountable. Local accountability. Get involved in your government. Get your friends to get involved in the government. Pay attention to what's going on. When you see that sort of corruption, root it out. Prosecute it. Because at the end of the day, a deliberately written contract that steals resources from the community by giving it in essentially bidless contracts is theft from the community. It is reallocation of wealth. It's stealing wealth from the poor. It's giving it to the rich to make the rich richer because they knew a guy. Okay, been running on for 40 minutes, folks. I think that's going to do it for tonight. I'm going to go catch my people's rights meetings. Have a fun one. Remember, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Something everybody's entitled to. Live it, breathe it. Help your neighbors understand it, support each other. We'll get through this, folks. Taking back our rights, one day at a time. Oh, before I actually get out of here, remember, donate to my campaign. Help me keep this on the air. Because, yeah, the services I'm paying for, some of the services I'm using right now, they're not exactly cheap. Help me get your message out. Let me know what's important to you. Donate to my campaign. Share, share, share. Do the watch things. Do the watch things. Okay. It's enough harping on that. Have a great day, guys.